From WBAZ Radio, it's Interview with the Artist with Walker Vreeland.
So today we have one of my personal favorite shows that we've ever done. You know, you try not to have favorites, but what are you going to do? You love what you love. Betty Buckley is on the show today, the Tony Award-winning singer and actress, Betty Buckley, the force that is Betty Buckley. We are so glad to have her back on the show, and we're so glad to have her back in the Hamptons. This summer, she's starring in Bay Street Theater's production of Grey Gardens the Musical, which is so exciting for many reasons. First of all, the casting is brilliant. Betty is playing Big Edie, and Rachel York is playing Little Edie. And then on top of that, there's additional buzz about this production because it's happening here. It's the first time this show will be produced in the Hamptons. The first time the show will be produced so close to the actual Grey Gardens estate in East Hampton. So it's very, very exciting. Now, when we spoke, Betty was going through sort of an intense time. She was teaching nonstop. She was preparing for Grey Gardens. She's been attempting to recover from this injury that you will hear about in this interview, if you haven't already. And in the midst of all of that, she lost an old friend, her 8 is Enough co-star Dick Van Patten. And in fact, we spoke just a few days after she found out about Dick. And it all seemed, on the day that we spoke, it all seemed to be happening at once. But what I really came away with from this interview was the way that Betty relates to the events in her life as opportunities. It's not just chaos. It may feel like chaos, but she really has the ability to step back and see if she can make out, okay, why are all of these things happening at once? Or why do they seem to be happening at once? What is the larger picture? What's the larger purpose here? And I found that to be really comforting. You know, life is hard sometimes. I've had a really rough month myself. Maybe it's in the stars. I don't know. And without going into too much detail, I'm trying to figure out right now where I'm going career-wise and what's next for me. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and as I'm sure you know, with uncertainty comes a lot of vulnerability. And that's not a good or a bad thing, that's just an intense thing. So it was really comforting for me to hear that point of view of what am I meant to learn? How will these challenges that I'm dealing with right now propel me forward and help me grow as a human being? That's what I was left with. And, in every interview, if you're just tuning in for the first time to the show, in every interview that I do, I'm always looking for who is this person? And if you're a theater person, you know that there's so much mystique that surrounds the great Broadway divas. And of course, I use the word diva in only the most positive and celebratory way. But certain people you think of as stars because they are stars. But what I'm really trying to get to, whether it's a star or not a star, is who is this person? And Betty Buckley is a woman from Texas who understands that everything that happens to her is part of something bigger. It's part of a grand design. And that caused something to shift inside of me. Hearing her talk about that perspective caused something to shift inside of me, and I think it will perhaps have the same effect on you. So, here we go. Let's hear it. My conversation with Betty Buckley. If I walk through this door. Betty Buckley, welcome to the show. We're so thrilled to have you back.
Thank you, Walker. It's good to talk to you.
So, first of all, Betty, earlier this week, your co-star on 8 is Enough, Dick Van Patten, died. And so I just wanted to say I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you very much. It was a real shock. I saw Dick and his beautiful wife, Pat, at the end of January at my L.A. concert at the Wallace Annenberg Theater. And he seemed well and his same jovial self, and I was just thrilled to see him. And it was very good to get to spend some time with him. And I knew that he'd been having some medical issues, but I didn't know that this was the last time I would see him. So it's been very sad, very sad.
You were quoted earlier this week as having said that he taught you so much. What did he teach you?
Yeah. Well, Dick was 19 years older than me, and I was meant to be the stepmother in this family unit that was already formed. They're wonderful. The original mother on Eight Is Enough, Dinah Hyland, had passed away shockingly from cancer after they had shot 4 episodes, and the show was a hit after the first 4 episodes. And so the network, ABC, was scrambling to find an appropriate stepmother person, and so they were auditioning everybody. And my first film, Carrie, had just come out, and that Brian de Palma had made, and I played Miss Collins. So one of the executives at the network had suggested to Fred Silverman that the character I played, Miss Collins, in the film Carrie, would be a really appropriate stepmother figure. So I had a new film agent. He flew me out to Hollywood to audition, and I did a screen test for them, and apparently didn't go very well. So they flew me back a second time because Brandon Tartikoff kept insisting that this would be the right choice. So they then did another test with their best director, Harry Harris, and Dick came in to test with me. And that test went really well because Dick was so kind, and he was such a funny, sweet man. And so it seemed a bit odd that I was 19 years younger. I was 28, and I only done 1 film. But suddenly I was in Hollywood, and I didn't know anything about shooting a television series, and it's like going to work in a factory. It's a really all-consuming job, and we did 29 episodes a year for 4 years. To shoot an hour-and-a-half episode took a week and a half. So it was a really not an easy job, and I just was uninformed and ill-prepared for how to handle all that, besides the fact that became this huge, was already a hit and became an even bigger hit. So Dick was just, the way he dealt with it, he was just such a consummate professional. He was always so kind, and when things got rough on set or tense or we were exhausted, he just would really keep the jokes or the funny stories coming, and this was the rallying point. He was a genuine father to those his television children, and as well as his 3 beautiful sons, Nels and Vincent and Jimmy. He just was a very, very soft-spoken, low-key, humble, loving, kind, lovely man. And all of us studied him constantly for how to do comedy because he was the consummate comedian. And I never perfected his style, but I was certainly striving to learn it. Anyway, he was a very kind man. And after the show was canceled, after 4 years, he would come to my shows, my various shows that I was in, and my concerts, and he and his wife and were always very supportive and very kind, and he's just a really great man, and I'm very fortunate, very, very fortunate and very blessed that I got to work with him.
You know, when we spoke on Tuesday, you said that it just brings a lot back up, and I know that whenever I experience a loss, often I'm grieving for the person, of course, but I'm also grieving for another time or a younger version of myself, or sometimes I'm grieving for something that I don't even know what it is. And I'm wondering if you have found the same thing to be true.
Oh, yeah. When you lose someone, it's profound, someone that's very meaningful in your life. And I guess it's taken me, I'm a slow learner, I think. I only now know what I wish I had known when I was 28 years old doing that show. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, in those years, that's like a kind of a critical transition. So, yeah, so many memories have come back, and it's a profound growing period when you lose someone as important as Dick Van Patten was to me. I guess sometimes we have a tendency, because life is so busy and so full and stressful, and we're all trying so hard to do the things we do and connect with our immediate relationships, so we don't always fully cognize, I suppose, how significant certain moments are and certain people are in your life. And then as time goes by, it begins to dawn on you, and that's just an awesome experience. I can really put no words to it, but it's tough. It's really tough.
It really forces you to stop and step back and look at your life. So, Betty, this summer you will be playing Big Edie in Bay Street Theater's production of Grey Gardens, the musical, which was adapted from the 1975 cult classic documentary. And the musical, unlike the documentary, essentially tells the story of how this mother and daughter, who were the aunt and first cousin of Jackie Kennedy Onassis, how they went from being upper-class socialites to eccentric recluses living in this crumbling estate in East Hampton. So why do you think this story is so compelling?
I'm still trying to figure that out because I've been so busy. I haven't really had time to attend to it as I would have liked to, but my preparation begins next week. Right now I'm teaching my spring-summer workshop for my students at the Modern Art Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, and I just came back from Denver where I was teaching a 5-day workshop, and then before that I was in New York doing a new show called Dark Blue-Eyed Blues. But I've been really, really busy, and Michael Wilson is directing Grey Gardens, and he and his partner, Jeff Cowie, is our designer, Andy Einhorn is our music director, Hope Clark is our choreographer, and Ilona Samogul is, I hope that's how I pronounce the name, is our designer. The wonderful Rachel York is starring as Little Edie, and we have an incredible cast. So it's going to be an incredible production. Scott Schwartz is the new artistic director at the Bay Street Theater, and they're doing an incredible season. So and apparently this is the anniversary, I forget exactly which year anniversary this is, of Grey Gardens. So it's a timely experience for the show to be presented in the Hamptons. It's very nearby where the Grey Gardens estate is, which has now been fully restored, and I'm looking forward to visiting the estate. So it's going to be an interesting sojourn. It's kind of funny because, ironic, I don't know, it's a twist of fate, as it were. 2.5 weeks ago, I was riding my horse, Wildman Bill, out on my loping path in the back part of my ranch here in Texas. And I made some mistakes in the way I was correcting him, and he lost his footing, and I thought he was going to fall on me. And so I bailed off and landed on the ground pretty hard and fractured 5 vertebrae in my lower back.
Oh no!
And I know, it's so nuts. Everything lately has just been really. I'm laughing because it's just so much has happened all at the same time.
Sure.
Besides my work schedule, I broke my back. I went to the spine doctor for the second time yesterday. He's quite positive and energetic, and said yesterday very optimistic, and said I was healing really fast for a woman of my age, which pleased me very much, but I am healing very fast, so that's the good news. But I wrote Michael after it happened. I said, you know what, unfortunately Big Edie spends the majority of the play in bed.
Exactly. Well, it couldn't have happened at a better time.
Completely crazy. And so I was like, I can't believe the universe goes to such detail to try to prepare me to play a part, because there was no reason for this accident with this beloved horse of mine, who is the gentlest, sweetest, most wonderful guy. And I'm, but it was again a very sobering experience, about life and fragility and vulnerability. Because I was laying on the ground, I was looking up at the blue Texas sky on my beautiful ranch, and said to myself, "You are so lucky to be alive. Now lay here and begin to realize that you are fragile and you can't do everything the way you used to do this."
Sure.
And so I was just like, no. So what did I do? I thought, you know what? It wasn't that hard. I got up and I got back on my horse and tried to continue working him out. And then tears started streaming down my face, and I thought, whoa, I have to go back to the barn. So I went and got my other horse, Scat Cat, who was tied to the fence, and I rode back to the barn crying, and then could barely get off. And then I was supposed to sing at a friend's wedding, and I was very excited to go to this wedding. the daughter of a very, very dear friend of mine. And so I went back to the house, and I think I was still in shock. So I took a shower, and I vocalized, and I thought, I can do this. I'm in pain, but I can do this. And then after my shower, I laid down for like 5 minutes, and I couldn't get up. And I thought, oh, my God. Within an hour, my mother and brother came, and they helped me go to the emergency room. So they did a CAT scan, and then this young doctor comes in, and he goes, well, you fractured 5 vertebrae, and we have to get you in an ambulance and take you to Harris Hospital in Fort Worth, and they have to do surgery. And I said, fortunately, I was conscious, and I said, no way. I said, call my doctor. And fortunately, I have this great doctor. My sports doctor is Daniel Cooper, who is the doctor for the Dallas Cowboys. And he immediately called back and said, no. They told him what it was, and he said, no, this is the same injury that happened to Tony Romo. And we just taped him up, and he kept playing football. And I was like, well, if Tony Romo can do it, I can.
Exactly.
So we didn't do the surgery, of course, but I've been healing very, very fast. But I thought, God, I won't even have to be act. So I said to Michael Wilson, I'm sorry for that long digression, but it was hilarious. And I wrote him and I said, I won't even have to act, her physicality. I said, I'm just in that state. And then on top of this, the news of, and it, in no way, there's no humor to this. There's joy in the remembrance of Dick, but I'm just like, gosh, I'm being put through a real learning process.
Yeah.
In the loss of my friend and co-star 8 Is Enough, and then the accident 2.5 weeks ago. I'm like, whoa, what's the universe telling me here? What is it I'm meant to learn that I was being oblivious prior to now? And let me learn that lesson, but it's not an easy one.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Okay, now you know life is crummy. Well, now you know. I mean, big surprise. People love you and tell you lies. Bricks can fall out of clear blue skies. Push your dimple down. Now you know it. Now you know it. Okay, there you go. Learn to live with it. Now you know. It's called flowers wilt. It's called apples rot. It's called thieves get rich and saints get shot. It's called God don't answer prayers a lot. Okay, now you know. Okay, now you know.
If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Tony Award-winning actress and singer Betty Buckley. Betty, you are, especially in terms of your work in the theater, you're one of the greats. You're known as the voice of Broadway.
I appreciate that.
Oh my goodness, you're known as the voice of Broadway, the quintessential Broadway leading lady. You've had many titles over the years, and you've played so many iconic, powerful women. Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, Hosseini in Triumph of Love, Carrie's mother in Carrie, Mama Rose in Gypsy, and then, of course, the role that you are most famous for, Grizabella in Cats, for which you won a Tony Award. When you think about all of these formidable women that you've played, does it surprise you? Does it make sense to you? Do you consider yourself to be a powerful woman in real life?
I think I'm an independent woman, and I think I've been blessed with, the talent that I have to sing and my quest to understand humanity and human psychology. All of those things fascinate me. I mean, I love people, and I love, trying to connect with people and understand people and why we do what we do. It's fascinating to me, and I love the craft of acting. I studied with some brilliant acting teachers and, tried to study hard and learn to be a good actress. And my favorite actresses were like Kim Stanley and Geraldine Page and later on Jenna Rollins. And, when I was a young actress, I was like, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to tell stories really honestly and with naked truth, And so I set about to study with the best teachers that I knew of. Ellen Burstyn is another of my favorites, and fortunately is also one of my very good friends. And so it's a hard-earned expertise, and then I went out to learn it. I didn't know how to do it, and I just knew I admired it. And fortunately, I got the work to do to help me grow as I was learning. And that It Is Enough was that for me. I was, a pretty average actress. I was a fairly decent singer, but I would say an average actress, if one could even say average. And it was through the 4 years of doing 29 hour-long films a year for 4 years with Dick Van Patten that let me learn to be a good actress. I would go to our dailies and I would watch my work and say, oh, okay, that's 10 seconds of truth and the rest is ridiculous. It's
wow.
like this. It's so phony, don't do that. But what were you thinking in those 10 seconds? How did that work?
Right.
And then just literally trying to figure it out, and I continued to study with Stella Adler when I was in L.A., and I kept flying back to New York every 6 weeks for voice lessons with my wonderful teacher, Paul Gabbert, because I knew I wanted to learn to be a good actress, a truth-telling actress, and I wanted to bring that kind of work to the musical theater as a singer, because I thought that would be really a good thing, And after the 4 years on It Is Enough, I came out of that experience and got the film Tender Mercies, starring opposite Robert Duvall, and he won the Academy Award for that. And the song I sang, Over You, was nominated for an Oscar and a Golden Globe. I sang it on the Golden Globes, and it won the Golden Globe. And so when I did Tender Mercies, the producers and the director, Bruce Beresford, brought me in to see my dailies all at once for that film. And I was, kind of in shock. I knew that I had the skill to finally play that kind of character. She was a raging alcoholic country western star who was really mad at Duvall's character for their divorce, and they had their daughter together, and she was, a great character, and the screenplay was written by Horton Foote, who was one of my favorite writers, and had written for all those great actresses that I wanted to emulate, like Kim Stanley and Geraldine Page. And I got to work on a set with Horton Foote, and I would literally sit at his feet and listen to stories about these amazing actresses. And then at the culmination of that, doing that film and Duvall's brilliance, that whole experience was like going to heaven for me as an actor. And after working so hard on that TV show, It Is Enough, I just felt like God had heard my prayer, and I got to work with these incredible artists. And at the end of that experience, I knew that day of seeing my dailies, I was like, oh my God, I know how to act. Mm-hmm. I know what to do now. And then I got the role of Grizabella in Cats. And that allowed me, for the first time, to step into my potential as a singing actress, because the song Memory required that ability to bare your soul in song.
Memory, all alone in the moonlight, I can smile at the old days. I was beautiful then. I remember a time I knew what happiness was. Let the memory live again. Burnt out ends of smoky days, the stale, cold smell of morning. A street lamp dies, another night is over, another day is dawning.
And then after that, I was like, I know what to do. I know what to do. And I could claim the craft that I had been working for so many years. Anyway, it was a real gift. And that's part of why I teach, because you can feel something inside yourself. You can think to yourself, I have this. I have a vision to do this. I know that potential is in me, and you know it, but it's not yet manifested. Mm-hmm. And so then what my life story has taught me is that if you feel something like that and you really are passionate about it, and you commit yourself to the work necessary, and you go to masters to learn how to do that you can learn it. I also had the blessing to know that my best work would come in my later years. So that would be now.
You always knew that?
That's what I tell myself every day. I'm like, Betty Lynn, you always said that your best work would be in your later years. Well, here you are, so get at it.
Get cracking. So wait a minute, Betty. You always knew that? You always had that intuition that your best work would come in your later years?
Yeah, because, in our culture, we're such a youth-oriented culture that I think I see a lot of people give up if they haven't, like especially in the world of acting or singing or art, because they think, well, if I don't have my television show, if I don't have my, Broadway show by the time I'm 24, then let's just forget it, if I'm not, and I because I've been a teacher for over 40 years, I say to people, look, life is long, in one perspective. As you get older, it gets shorter, and as you notice, time flies by so fast. But when you're younger, it's all ahead of you. You just have to give yourself time to grow. And I think becoming a better and better actress is about learning more and more about life. And I think life is a school, but I also think it's meant for us to have fun. I think the lessons should be interesting and fun if you can live that way. And I try to. I'm not always completely successful at that mission, but I do think we're meant to enjoy this world. It's such a beautiful place, and it's like this morning I got up and I went out on my back porch and I was like, there are birds singing and butterflies flying across my backyard and the green grass and the beautiful trees and my horses in the pasture, and I was just like, oh, and my little dog, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. And I was like, Betty Lynn, just take the time to see the world. The world, And so I think it's supposed to be fun, because clearly it's a beautiful place. And clearly human beings are beautiful creatures, and all the animals, and I mean, my goodness, it's just so lovely. I'm
smiling so wide right now, just listening to you talk.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see.
When people say they have a question of faith, and the belief that there is a higher consciousness, a compassionate, loving, intelligent, animating force that's creating the whole thing, that resides in all of us, that connects all of us through our heart's understanding and our souls. No one can deny that. People can try to deny it, but to me, it's perfectly obvious if you just look at the day.
Blue days, all of them but blue skies from now on.
So, Betty, you mentioned that in the film Tender Mercies, you sang the song Over You. I'd like to play that song. So, again, this is my guest, Betty Buckley, with Over You.
Any fool can see that love is blind. Here I am to prove it one more time. Forget about my pride. I didn't mean to catch you by surprise. I hope that isn't pity in your eyes. I've tried so hard to stay away and keep you off my mind. I know I should, but it's no good, 'cause time goes by and I'm not over you. I'll gladly be a fool in love again. If there's a chance that you might see me, touch me while we're ever near. still going crazy over you. No, I'm never getting over you. One more cup of coffee, then I'll go. But there's one more thing I think you ought to know. The days go by, nothing's changed. I'm still here for the taking. And just a touch would mean so much to one whose heart is breaking over you. I'll gladly be a fool in love again. If there's a chance that I see, touch me, want me, never leave, I'm still going crazy over you. I know I'll never get over you. I know I'll never get over you.
If you're just joining us, we are here with the Tony Award-winning singer and actress Betty Buckley. Looking back on your career, Betty, when did you feel, whether it was a show or whether it was a night, when did you feel most adored or embraced by an audience?
That's funny. Well, there have been many. I mean, honestly, there have been some startling experiences, blessed, miraculous experiences that I've experienced on the stage. But things that stand out to me are my concert in 1996 at Carnegie Hall for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
It was with a symphony orchestra and the music director, the conductor, brilliant conductor, Paul Gimignani. And we did this amazing, 2.5 hour long concert with my guest stars, Lindsay Haley, and some wonderful dancers and other singers. And it was a packed house at Carnegie Hall, and I've never experienced anything like that. Prior to that were my two opening nights of Sunset Boulevard, the first in London in 1994, and then when I opened in New York in the summer, July of 1995, I truly I felt like I was swimming through a sea of love. It was palpable.
Everything's as if we never said goodbye. We taught the world new ways to dream.
There was so much love in the air. The whole audience just, leapt to their feet, and I was just like, oh my God. And they wouldn't stop. And I just finally had to lower my head and to wait for the applause to start to die down.
You're listening to Walker Vreeland. Follow Walker on Twitter @WalkerOnRadio.
Your most recent album is called Ghostlight, and it came out last year. It's produced by T-Bone Burnett, who's worked with everyone from Bob Dylan to Elton John to Tony Bennett to Robert Plant. He's very accomplished and highly regarded in the music business, and I understand that you guys have known each other for a long time. Tell us about your history together.
Well, T-Bone and I have known each other since we were teenagers, and our mothers, his mother Hazel Vernon and my mother Betty Bob, were really good friends. And T-Bone went to Pascal High School and I went to Arlington Heights, so we weren't school chums, but we knew each other through Stephen Bruton, who was our really good friend, who's a guitar player, singer-songwriter, brilliant musician. His dad, Sumter Bruton, was my first drummer, and I, sang with a little jazz trio in the jazz club in New York, in Fort Worth, at Casa del Sol. And T-Bone had his own recording studio from the time he was 17. And Sumter Bruton, this drummer who was Stephen's father, owned Record Town, which was they still have Record Town. It's off in Fort Worth on the TCU campus. Now it used to be in my neighborhood, and that was the record store where you could get every kind of music, and that we all learned to love world music because of the wonderful collection of material that Sumter Bruton brought into his store. So Stephen and I were school chums, and we were very good friends. And so I met T-Bone, and we all were buddies. And then our mother said, we need an archive tape of Betty Lynn's singing. So one Saturday afternoon, I went into T-Bone's studio and recorded this little archive tape.
The way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the memory of all that. No, they can't take that away from me, the way your smile just beams.
And there was like 2 copies of it, a reel-to-reel tape in the old days, And I sent one of those copies to my first agent, Roger Hess, who went on to become a big Broadway producer. And so T-Bone and I maintained our friendship through the years, and whenever he was in New York, we'd have dinner, and he'd always say, we should make another record someday, and I'd be like, yeah, we should, and whatever. Anyway, but I never even listened to that archive tape again after all that time. And in 2007, Phil Bursch, the owner of Playbill, the publisher of Playbill, was starting his own record label, and Roger Hess had played this old reel-to-reel archive tape for him, this first recording of my voice when I was 19, and T-Bone was 19. And Phil Bursch said, I want to release this as the first album you never had. And so I said, okay, well, let me listen to it again. I haven't heard it. And so I listened to it with my mother. And because at first I didn't like it much, and then I listened to it with my mother, and I heard it in a different way. And I thought, yeah, it's sweet, and you can just hear this young girl, and trying to learn to be, trying to be a singer, and her feelings for song, and so I thought, yeah, that's nice. And so it was released in 2007 on vinyl and CD, and we sent a copy to T-Bone, and T-Bone was very moved to remember what we'd accomplished when we were 19-year-olds. And, it's this old funky piano that was in his studio, but the musicians are good,
It's fantastic. It's so pure.
It is very pure. And very, it has that quality to it, and it was done, and everything was one take, we didn't try more than, it was done in about, I guess, 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
Perhaps we rehearsed something and then recorded it or something like that.
One boy, one special boy, one boy to go with, to walk with and talk with, one boy, that's the way it should be.
So a couple years ago, T-Bone just called me up out of the blue. It was really amazing, and said, Betty Lynn, I've got some time in my schedule. Let's make that record. And I was like, are you kidding? And so I flew to L.A. and sat down with him, and we went through all these board mixes of so many songs that I loved that I'd sung in concert but never recorded. And we boiled that down to 12 songs, and there were 8 others that he said, these are really good. You should release those as they are, as a bootleg recording. And so I did that. I released bootleg board mixes from the road with his blessing, and we included one track from the forthcoming Ghostlight.
She wanted to be a cowboy. She was shooting them down. She was tramping around.
We recorded Ghostlight with these amazing musicians that T-Bone selected in the Village Recording Studios in L.A., which is where Fleetwood Mac, the studio that was built for Fleetwood Mac, and my recording booth was built for Stevie Nicks, and it was just so incredible. The whole experience was like bliss. And then the record came out last fall on vinyl and CD, and I love it. It's just so, it's the 16th recording I've made, but I think it's the truest to the essence of who I am as an individual and as an artist.
Baby, where's that place where time stands still? I remember like a lover can. I forget it like a lever will.
I've heard you say that T-Bone directed you like a filmmaker.
He's fascinating. Well, he scores movies. He's scored movies for years, and he's currently scoring True Detective last season and this season.
Oh, great show.
He's brilliant. He would show us little bits of film and talk to us about who we were as a band and who I was as the character of the singer, and he would say what he had to say and then send us into the studio, and it was fascinating.
Phone's off the hook. No one knows where we are. It's a long time since I drank champagne. The ocean is blue as your eyes. I'm gonna take it with me when I go.
When I heard you talk about working with T-Bone Burnett and how visually he directed you, I remembered how I think the last time we talked, how you described your work as a singer. You said you think of yourself as a portrait painter, which I always loved. I always loved that metaphor. So I imagine that you and T-Bone were simpatico because you were speaking the same language in a way. Right.
I didn't know that that's how I should have thought of it, I suppose, because he does score all these movies. But I think sometimes I think I'm I've got know some stuff, but when I'm around T-Bone, I'm like, oh my God, it's almost like I have to go rest after I'm with him because his brain, his mind is so big. I feel like I have to keep on all systems running just to keep up with him. He's a brilliant guy.
Well, this is more of an observation than a question. But as far as collaboration goes, I mean, Ghostlight is it's in so many ways a perfect marriage from my perspective. I mean, his vision for this album as a work of art capturing one moment in time, and how layered it is, and how atmospheric it is, and its evocation of Texas, even though it's meant to take place in Los Angeles. I hear Texas, probably because it's produced by T-Bone Burnett, and you're from Texas. But I mean, all of that, all of those elements being part of the grand vision, it's such a testament to you as a singer because of what you are capable of, and it's also a testament to him because he can see you as the singer you are, not just a musical theater singer, but a singer. And I've been listening. Exactly
right. That's so articulate what you just said, Walker. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you sharing that experience of the record with me, because that's what I feel about the record too. there's such an expanse to it and layering, and it's very atmospheric. It's really meant to be listened to as a piece, which I think it's rare that an album does that, takes you on a whole journey.
It's a lazy afternoon, and the beetle bugs are zooming, and the tulip trees are blooming, and there's not another human in view but us two.
I mean, I've been listening to some contemporary albums. Obviously I listen to a lot of music, and they're track after track, and they're just individualized experiences that have to do with rhythm and beats and maybe one or two ideas. And rarely is there a whole story that's told in a sense of place. What I love is that sense of expansion and wide openness to it, which those musicians created. And that's through T-Bone and how he sees and hears things. And he's definitively the way who he is in that. But I do think when you said that, that's part of what Texans do, part of the blessing of being in Texas, again, for me. And someone said to me once, Texas is a taste. You have to have a taste for this, the wide open space and the sunsets and the big skies. It's like, and that it's kind of, that's America to me. That breadth of spirit and expansion. And I think that's part of the signature of T-Bone and what he has tapped into that is just definitively American
and definitively you. I mean, I've been listening to your records for years now, and this might be something that only diehard Betty Buckley fans would pick up on, but your voice is all of those things. I mean, all of his vision, the storytelling in one moment in time. I mean, that's your voice. You at the atmospheric, that's your voice. It's Texas, that's your voice. It's the girl in a band. It's like, that's all your voice. So I don't know. I had this moment the other day. I was listening to it and I thought to myself, oh my God, he sees her. He sees her soul.
I know, and there's no greater gift than that, when another human being grasps you, and gets the essence of who you really are and loves you for that. That's what I love about him. And it's like a very pure love that, and a comprehensive vision, because we've known each other since we were teenagers. And that's such a blessing, that when that happens. And even for you to say that to me, Walker, thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course. You've had such a prolific recording career, and I wish that so many of your first albums were still available on iTunes. I mean, thank God.
Oh, thank you. So do I. I've tried to talk to the guy that owns those recordings to see if he wouldn't re-release them, and so far we haven't. He's had other things on his mind, but I should reapproach him about that because I love those records. I think they're really pretty.
Well, Betty Buckley, I just want to thank you for your generosity, your generosity in time and heart, and your stories just broke open my heart in the most beautiful way, and it means a lot to me personally. So thank you.
Thank you, Walker. I really enjoyed talking to you this morning. I appreciate it.
Well, today I've been speaking with Tony Award-winning actress and singer Betty Buckley, and she will be starring in Grey Gardens the Musical at Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor. It opens August 4th, and it runs through August 30th. Betty Buckley, thanks again.
I've so enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very, very much.
I know that there is more to life than this little piece that I've broken off and keep suspended.
Interview with the Artist comes to you from WBAZ Radio. Leave your comments and listen to past episodes on our website, interviewwiththeartist.com. Thanks for listening.
Have I just blocked out the sky that fills that old river with pure water? of love stronger than pride, honest emotion, so hard to come by. Once it hurts you,